Hello everybody, welcome to lockdown lessons. How are you all? It is grim in Cornwall, very wet and horrible, so I hope you guys are warmer and safer and not so soggy where you are. I'm Bex, I'm taking over from Toby today. I'm just going to waffle for a minute while everyone comes online, not rushing to anything. So all you need today is a pen and a piece of paper. If you've been following all of our sessions so far, or if you haven't, don't worry, they're all on the Skool Cornwall YouTube site. But if you have been looking at a few of them, it's a good idea probably to organise your notes. So grab a file, folder, and get all these kind of nuggets you're learning into one place that you can take into school next month, or even next term. And hopefully they'll be really useful for you going forward in your English lessons. It's really boring outside, horrible outside, hence the rainbow cardigan. Okay, I think we're going to get going. So if you were watching Toby's lesson yesterday, we're going to pick up on a concept that he discussed briefly, which was juxtaposition. So our session today is on juxtaposition, if you want to note that down. So this is a concept that most students grasp pretty easily. It's not difficult to get hold of what this is, but students sometimes come a bit unstuck in being able to define it and also explaining its impact on the viewer, on the reader. So what we're going to do today is get into the impacts of juxtaposition and be able to identify it in a text. And we're going to start with the aforementioned cardigan. So on your own, just scribble down a few adjectives. How would you describe the cardigan? Can you see my cardigan? Okay, so just 30 seconds, get some ideas down. And this. Okay, so probably you've got something along the lines of colourful, bright, vivid, ostentatious, rainbowy, knitted, cosy on a cold day. But did any of you get this word? I would guess not, because the designers of this cardigan have used juxtaposition. They're juxtaposing what is a very bright and snazzy cardigan, in my opinion, with the word boring. So boring it is not. That word does not correlate with this thing. That's juxtaposition. Now, why they've done that? Well, it's mildly amusing to label something that it isn't. And that kind of playfulness, that challenge the viewer, is sort of one of the impacts of juxtaposition, actually. So, juxtaposition as a definition is this. You have a little look at that and maybe write that down into your notes. Placing two unlike things side by side to emphasize their difference or invite exploration of each element. So, I'm going to show you an image in a second, and I'd like you to try and find as many examples of juxtaposition as you can in this image. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do this, and it'd be super if you feel comfortable to pop some ideas of where you find this juxtaposition, placing two things that are different side by side in this text. If you put your ideas in the comment box, and I'll dig into that in a second. Okay, so here's your image. All right, guys, 3 minutes. See what you can come up with. How many examples of juxtaposition can you find in this image? All right, folks. So this is an image you probably have heard, I think, of the artist. This is Banksy. Let's have a little look at the comments and see what you guys have come up with in terms of where we can see the juxtaposition. So Chloe, absolutely. They've got the sunshine in that top left corner with spring flowers, and yet this very contrasting image of a boy with a gun. Fantastic, absolutely. It's actually quite a shocking example of juxtaposition. It's shocking to see those two things put side by side. And actually shock is one of the effects, one of the impacts of juxtaposition. Anyone else got some ideas? Okay, well, let's have a look at some of the other things that I've kind of had a little think about, having looked at this text quite a bit. So we've got this singular image, as Chloe said, of the boy with the flower, juxtaposed with the flowers. But in terms of the composition or the style of the drawings, there's juxtaposition there. So we've got this very childlike, very innocent depiction, almost like scrawls of the flowers. And yet, if you actually look at the way that the boy is drawn, we have this kind of very detailed, almost too detailed. It looks almost realistic. Of course, it's in black and white, but we have this very, very clear depiction, very adult depiction of this boy with the gun. So in terms of the composition of the elements of themselves, there's juxtaposition. And now look again at a really sort of simple element, the colour. So there's a juxtaposition between the monochromatic colour, black and white colour of the boy, the gun, and the bright colours of the flowers, and the kind of natural elements. And the natural elements are kind of almost seemingly purposefully unrealistic in some way. The blue flower with the blue stem. It's not meant to be in any sense realistic. There's a juxtaposition as well in terms of the, oh yeah, very good. Rainbow bullets, Simon, and crayons. Yeah, very nice. Okay, then, and that's something that's really interesting. If we look at the actual gun itself, a gun is something that's obviously, as emblematic of war, and yet the bullet cartridges that go. I'm assuming I'm not an expert, but some semi-automatic gun are all rainbow colours. There's also the kind of thematics of that. He's brandishing a weapon that traditionally would connote war, and yet flowers are correlated typically with peace. So even within the text itself, the kind of themes of the text, there seems to be a clear juxtaposition. So what is Banksy's point? What does the juxtaposition convey in terms of meaning? Well, juxtaposition almost always raises questions. Why are these two things put together? They invite inquiry, basically. So we've got this boy, we've got these flowers around him, yet he's not at one with the flowers. In fact, he's standing for something other than the childishness that these flowers seem to represent. He's holding an adult object, a gun. So my dog is just padding around. Is Banksy suggesting then that the adult world is somehow destroying innocence, destroying childishness? What other impacts might we see in this text? I think it's interesting, the black and white. Perhaps the colour change also suggests a kind of loss of innocence, that we see the world in very black and white, as in that's often used as a metaphor for one-sided. We aren't prepared to incorporate other opinions into ours. We're very fixed in our viewpoint. And this raises one of the central kind of themes in literature, actually, in terms of juxtaposition. You see it again and again in poetry and in literature, the juxtaposition of innocence and experience. We could suggest that maybe the fact that the image of the boy is more real, does that mean it has more power? Is Banksy saying that war is winning because that image is more vividly drawn, more precisely expressed? just take a look at where the gun is pointing. So I think this raises a really interesting point about the text. So the gun is pointing at a no parking sign. So this is a real part of the wall that Banksy's graffitied, and he's included it. So look at that sign, no parking. The language is in that sign is formal, adult, institutional, and yet the boy is pointing the gun at it. Now, if we said earlier that potentially the boy stood for some sort of adult world, why is he pointing the gun at it? And I think this is where it goes back to those rainbow bullets that Simon mentioned. The sign is the target, and the gun is pointed at the target. These rainbow bullets are being shot at, potentially, this adult symbol. Is then the act that he's engaged with as violent as we first thought? The juxtaposition of the rainbow bullets with the gun might suggest that instead of him being some sort of shooter or soldier, perhaps he's the artist of those flowers, the drawer of those flowers. Is he not the artist himself? We're going full circle now. Is this the juxtaposition at the centre of this image, the rainbow bullets and the gun, to do with Banksy's point that potentially there is power in innocence, there's power in childhood, and this is a symbol of childhood trying to deconstruct the adult world and show that it has some value. All of those interpretations, all of them at once are valid, and this is the power of juxtaposition. It adds depth of meaning. So we are initially arrested by the shocking image, the shocking contrast of that boy with a gun, the boy and the gun with the flowers behind him. But actually, analysis of that juxtaposition and where it takes us exposes the layers of meaning that juxtaposition can often throw up. So, let's have a quick recap. We had juxtaposition, the definition, and where are we now? Well, we're looking at the impact of juxtaposition as a device. So it always invites inquiry and exploration. It's often disconcerting, it can be shocking, and just like my cardigan, it can be humorous. So you might want to note those ideas down because they might be useful as we go forward into looking at some other texts. I'll just give you a second to do that. So when we look at juxtaposition in writing or language, whether it's a poem, prose, plays, or any text really, it can be between large elements or the smallest. So it can be between plot elements like setting, storylines, it can be between characters, it can be between words in sentences, it can even be between sounds in sentences or paragraphs or within a metaphor itself. So juxtaposition can exist on the smaller scale and the larger scale in terms of the composition and construction of a text. So basically nothing's off the table. You can use this term in analysis in many, many different ways. All right, let's move on and explore another example of juxtaposition. Who are these guys? Don't worry, I'm not going to get you to compare and contrast these little characters. But they, them or the film they're related to, they come from, has inside it, as a part of its soundtrack, a really interesting example of juxtaposition. Now, full disclosure, I've listened to this song a lot. I have a 4-year-old who's obsessed with the Trolls movie. And it was through repeated listings that I found this interesting use of juxtaposition, and I thought it was really worth looking at because it's not a typical example of juxtaposition and exposes quite a lot about the meaning within the text and also the writer's intent. So we're going to have a little look at a song from the Trolls movie. I apologise in advance. This is not my typical musical taste, but it's part of the lesson, it's educational, so let's have a go. So what I'm looking for you to do is to try and find the juxtaposition that I have, that I've heard, okay? So what is the juxtaposition in this track? Are we ready? I hope you can hear that.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on.
And if you want it inside your soul,
Just open up your heart, let music take control.
I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops.
Ooh,
I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. Come on, rock the way we rock it, so don't stop. Under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good creeping up on you, so just dance, dance, dance. Come on. All those things I should do, but you dance, dance, dance. Ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing.
I'm so sorry for subjecting you to my mum dancing. I promise I won't do that again. I don't promise I will. I'll try and live up to that promise. Okay, so did you pick up on the juxtaposition? Like, I bear in mind I have heard it a lot, and you know my analytical English teacher brain can't unhear it. Now I have heard it. So I'm sort of throwing you in the deep end and hoping that you have an intimate knowledge of Justin Timberlake and his oeuvre. But given that you probably don't, I'm just going to dip into the comments and see if everyone is still there. Excellent. Okay, so let's start with the music. Let's break it down. Basically, I have noticed a disconnect between the song lyrics. Sorry, something came off my screen and I'm not technical. God, it's fine. The song lyrics and the music. Let's start with the music. I'm not going to play it again because we're not going to overload you with that. Delight. So come up with some adjectives. How might you describe the music? Let's start there. I think there's a disparity, a juxtaposition between the music and the lyrics. Let's start with the music. You heard it. Quickly scribble down some adjectives that might describe that little pop song that we just heard. Just the music first. Give you a minute to do that. So, probably trying not to be, I suppose, biased about the quality of the song. We've got some music adjectives, something like this. Maybe you've come up with cheerful, jovial, upbeat, joyful, peppy, exactly, Chloe, fun, happy, well done, really nice. All right. And that's absolutely how I experienced it for the first 126 times. But then when I was dancing around the living room one dreary afternoon with my very excited 4-year-old, singing these lyrics, I was quite shocked actually when I started to unpick something else and find something else in it. So this is the moment what time? I've got time to play it again. This is the moment that we've it got a bit strange. So it's about 2 verses in. As we're talking about a song, it's a verse, but obviously if this was poetry, we would maybe be using the term stanza. And we come up with this lyric. I'm not going to sing it, don't worry. I can't take my eyes up off it. Moving so phenomenally. Room on lock, the way we rock it, so don't stop. And it's a very, very small word that I've highlighted that immediately caught my attention. Well, not immediately, after a few listens caught my attention. Because it does seem to juxtapose to that kind of fun, happy, almost innocent, actually, kind of vibe of the music itself. I was wondering if anyone could help me out with a sense about why that might be interesting. Example of juxtaposition. What is it about that word there? Such a small word, yet it's doing quite a lot for my perception. So this word here, in terms of word class, so the kind of word that it is a pronoun. Is there anything odd about this pronoun choice? So this pronoun wouldn't typically be used here in this sentence. So what would be more typical is a third person gendered pronoun like her and him, or a plural pronoun, non-gender binary, them. I can't take my eyes up off her, off him, off them. That would be much more typical. But this one refers to things generally. That's how we use it in English. So to use it in this context objectifies the dancer. The speaker is objectifying the dancer, or talking about an element of the dancer, in which case the dancer becomes reduced to that element. I can't take my eyes up off it. It could be a part of the dancer's body, or it could be the dancer themselves. Either way, it's either objectified or reduced by the use of that pronoun. And for me, that isn't the vibe of the music. So it was interesting. Can you find some more examples of this then juxtaposition between the light-hearted, sort of frivolous music and maybe something else going on with the lyrics? Okay, have a little look at this. These are the next few verses or stanzas. I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. Have a little look. Can you find anything else which seems to, in its seriousness, adult content, or just tone, seem to juxtapose with the light-hearted vibes that we established the music conveyed? 2 minutes. Okay, so I can see that Chloe has got something in there which absolutely agree with. It is not necessarily correlating to the vibe of the song, the music that we heard. And absolutely, Simon, I agree with you as well. All those things I shouldn't do. It's actually kind of unnerving to me to look at it in black and white, because I thought there was something going on, and then I saw it in black and white and I was like, wowzer. But we're going to talk about the reason or the message or the purpose in a second, but let's just unpick this. So absolutely, Chloe, creeping up on you. So that's a really interesting verb choice. This is the present participle of the verb, so creeping. ing words are present participles, so it's happening now. So we can almost see the speaker creeping up. And there's a lovely, I say lovely, there's lots of connotations of that, aren't there? Creeping. It's vaguely predatory. There's a sense of sneakiness or deception. And absolutely, as Evie's kind of coming in with nowhere to hide when I'm getting close, absolutely, nowhere to hide is, again, the sense of the predatory, which is not how you experience a song on its first listen. Yeah, I had the nowhere to hide one, Evie. I thought that was really interesting too. And if you put that in with Ain't Nobody Leaving Soon, there's a sense of this locked room, this incarceration. Yeah. As Simon said, those things I shouldn't do. Almost a sense of being out of control. The speaker seems to not be fully in control of his own. I say his, that's not right. So we don't know if the speaker is male or female, and we don't know if the dancer is, and I'm calling it because obviously there's a you, there's a second person here that the speaker is addressing. So you is an example of second person pronoun, but there are no gendered pronouns in this text. By that I mean There are no he, she. There are no gender determiners either. So his or her. I'm going to put some terms on the board. There's no board, Bex. There's no board. There's just YouTube. I'm going to put some terms up in a minute. So yeah, I can't say it's a he. The speaker is not necessarily a he. The dancer is not necessarily a she. We could talk about why that matters later. But yeah, so the speaker seems like they're not in control of their actions. I found this a sense of sort of almost like a mania as well, and that's in the repetition. So if you look at, it comes all the way through. So dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on, dance, dance, dance. When you say it all kind of in that way, there's almost this, manic sense. We do, particularly in lyrics rather than poetry or prose, we experience this sort of repetition and listing a lot more typically. With single words placed together in this way, you might call this listing, by the way, asyndetic, which means there are no conjunctions between it. And you do find it more in lyrics rather than prose or poetry, but it's still interesting. And combined with this sense of the imperative. So all of the dance, 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 just dance, 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 come on. These are all in the imperative mood. They're commands. And again, we have this sense of the power relationship between the speaker and the dancer. Not he, they are commanding. Okay, so let's put some terms up for you guys that we've just covered. So we've got the present participle verb there. An asyndetic list, which just means a list with no conjunction. The conjunction is a kind of a word class, so and, or, but. There's a really nice mnemonic to remember that. Fanboys, which I'll maybe pop in the comments later. But for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so are all conjunctions. It's a good way of remembering that closed word class. Okay, so there's something going on here and there. There's something going on that we, in our first listen to the song, we might not have expected. And there's many roads analytically that we could take. We could look at, we've already established there's something going on between the relationship between the speaker and the dancer. What is that relationship? Is that based on gender? Can we ascribe gender when there's no sense of gender here? Is it a power relationship? What is the intent of the juxtaposition? Why has the writer of this song married these two seemingly incongruous or inconsistent tones? Or are these lyrics actually a part of the way that the writer is conveying their meaning, that this sort of assertive, confident tone adds to the cheeky sass of the music and corroborates the overall vibe? Well, I'm going to leave that up to you. So I'd like you to have a go at analysing this text. I'd like you to try and come up with some ideas about why you think the writer used these lyrics juxtaposed with the vibe of the music. And that's your little, I hate to say the word homework because you're at home all the time, working from home all the time. That's your little task if you'd like to get involved. So you can just email that to us, lockdownlessons@skoolcornwall.com, and we will take a look at your responses. So again, why do you think, what's the intent of the writer when they juxtaposed the lyrics with the music? If you can, as you always should in analysis, use evidence from the text, so they'll obviously be available on the screen. You can search the first two stanzas as well online, so it's Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake, the original Trolls version. In that first stanza, verse, you have some lovely metaphors. So if you want to pick up on the learning that you're doing with Toby about exploring imagery, then you might want to check out those first couple of verses as well. So that's almost the end of today's lesson. I think the key thing is with juxtaposition that it exposes things that are potentially hidden within a text. And the lesson for me with juxtaposition is to find it. Because not all juxtaposition is intentional. And sometimes we can find, if we look closely, juxtaposition in things we're encouraged to believe are simple or harmonious. So advertising uses this all the time. They give us a truth but actually we can find the fault lines within that truth if we look closely enough. So keep looking, keep using your curiosity and inquiry to analyse your world, discover truths that are hidden from you, either intentionally or unintentionally, and draw your conclusions to why juxtaposition has been used. What do you think the writer's message or purpose is? And is it what you originally thought it was? Thanks so much for tuning in today, and we're going to be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. The easiest way of getting notifications about when we go live is to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can also follow us on Facebook at Lockdown Lessons Live. And please tell other people about us. Tell your friends that we're here, and hopefully giving you something that's really of value that you'll be able to take into your learning for the rest of your academic year. Been a pleasure to meet you guys. Stay dry and stay safe, and I will see you next week.